Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where comfort was a luxury and sleep came wrapped in steel. Yeah, you heard that right. Tonight, we're slipping under a knight's blanket, which to be honest, might just be his chainmail. It's going to be cold, heavy, and slightly smelly. But don't worry, you'll probably survive this. Probably. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The camp has gone quiet. The last sparks of fire crackle softly, throwing flickers of orange across a sea of tents. You walk slowly between them, boots sinking slightly in the damp earth. The air smells of smoke, wet leather, and fatigue. All around you, the muffled sounds of men trying to sleep, groans, coughs, the rustle of straw-stuffed blankets. Your tent is small, just tall enough for you to kneel, not stand. It's canvas, patched and weather-stained, like every other night's here. The faint silver of moonlight leaks through a rip near the top, tracing a pale line across your armor. You can feel the weight of the day still on your shoulders, not just the steel plates, but the ache underneath them. You lower yourself onto the rough bedroll, straw, burlap, maybe a little mud mixed in for that authentic medieval spa experience. The cold hits immediately. Your fingers sting. Your breath fogs in the air. Somewhere outside, a horse snorts, and you hear the jangle of a loose harness chain. Your squire had tried his best. He spread out the straw, fluffed your worn-out cloak, maybe even found an extra scrap of wool from another camp. He's 15, maybe 16, already asleep near the tent flap, curled like a cat beside your sword. You envy that, how easily he sleeps, even with the wind whistling through the seams. You shift your armor slightly, trying to find a position that doesn't feel like sleeping inside a coffin. The metal is cold against your neck. You debate, take it off or leave it on. You remember what happened last time someone removed their armor in a war camp. The midnight ambush, the panic, the way steel saved seconds that meant survival. So tonight you keep it on. You'll just loosen the straps. The moon drifts higher. The camp's fires fade to faint embers. In that dim half-light, the world feels quieter than silence itself. You can hear your own heartbeat thudding softly beneath the plates. Every movement makes a faint metallic whisper, a reminder that even rest comes with a price. There's something oddly peaceful about it. The weight, the stillness. It's like being cradled by the same thing that could kill you. Armor was protection, but it was also a prison. You remember what an old knight once told you. The armor guards the body, but the soul learns to sleep elsewhere. You smile faintly, or maybe you imagine that you do. Your face is stiff, your jaw sore. The night air tastes of ash and iron. A nearby tent rustles. Two soldiers whisper, their words too low to catch but warm in their tone. Laughter, even now. Maybe a story about home, about bread ovens or wives or fields. You haven't thought about your own home in weeks. The campaign has stretched longer than anyone expected. You've forgotten what your own bed smells like. Somewhere far off, an owl calls. Then another. A low hum moves through the forest, wind through the branches, the rhythm of it almost hypnotic. You let your eyes drift half shut. You think of the morning, of battle, of banners, of the clang that will come again. You think of glory, though you're not sure what it means anymore. The poets say knights never feel fear. The poets are liars. You've felt it plenty. You're feeling it now, lying still under the stars. Fear isn't always about death. Sometimes it's about waking up and realizing you've become the very thing you were trying to protect others from. The straw beneath you shifts as you move. It crunches, dry and sharp. You pull your cloak tighter, but the cold sneaks in anyway, clever as a thief. You close your eyes, forcing your breath to slow. A fact slips into your drowsy mind, something one of the squires mentioned from a scholar's letter. Did you know medieval camps sometimes froze so bad that knights slept with their swords drawn, just in case they couldn't move their fingers by dawn? You imagine that. The absurdity, the stubbornness of men refusing to die unarmed, even in sleep. You chuckle under your breath. The sound is swallowed by the night. You roll onto your side, plates clinking softly, and watch the faint light of the embers painting shadows on the tent wall. The fire outside is almost gone. Only one knight remains awake. You can see his silhouette, sharpening a blade, face lit orange-red. He's humming a tune, a lullaby maybe. Something from a village you've never seen. You feel a pang of something. Not sadness, just distance. Like you're watching the world through a visor slit, and everything real is always one breath too far. Your eyes grow heavier. The hum fades. The tent flaps rustle again. Maybe just wind, or maybe the soft footsteps of a sentry making his round. The air grows colder. The stars shift slightly through the hole in your tent's ceiling. You think about tomorrow, about the way dawn light looks on polished armor, about the noise of trumpets echoing through mist. You'll wake stiff, aching, maybe bleeding from armor rash. But right now, you're weightless. And for the first time all night, the armor doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like a blanket, one that hums faintly with memories of every fight, every oath, every heartbeat that came before. You drift into half-sleep, the kind that comes with exhaustion, fear, and strange comfort, the kind that makes your dreams blur with the sounds outside. In those dreams, you're not cold, you're not tired, you're simply waiting. The first light hasn't touched the horizon yet, and already you can feel it, the weight of steel pressing against your ribs, your shoulders, your very breath. It's a strange thing, this armor of yours. By day it's your pride, your status, your survival. But by night it becomes your curse, an iron cocoon that hugs too tightly, making every heartbeat sound like a blacksmith's hammer echoing inside your chest. You shift again, wincing as a strap pinches your arm. The metal creaks softly, the sound lost in the sighing of the wind outside. You think about how much this armor cost, what it took to own it. Forged by hands you'll never shake, polished by a squire who worships the idea of knighthood more than the reality of it. There's something almost sacred about that, the way a boy believes that steel alone makes a man brave. But bravery doesn't keep you warm. You run your gloved hand along the breastplate, feeling the dents and scratches left by battles past. Each mark is a memory, a clash, a near miss, a moment when death passed close enough to whisper in your ear. You can trace them all like a strange, metallic diary written in scars. The edges of your gauntlets are cold, the leather inside damp with old sweat. You try not to think about the smell. It's a blend of iron, oil, and something human that never quite washes out. Your muscles ache beneath the mail. It's heavy in a way that's hard to describe, more than just weight. It's the kind of heaviness that seeps into your bones and stays there, even after you take it off. You wonder how many years of a knight's life are spent simply enduring discomfort. Maybe all of them. Maybe that's the secret training no one talks about. A whisper of movement comes from outside your tent. The faint jingle of a chain, the scuff of boots on dirt. Probably a sentry, or maybe another knight wandering sleepless. The night before battle always hums with a strange energy, a quiet awareness that this could be the last calm you ever feel. You try to relax, but the armor won't let you. It hugs your chest like an anxious friend who doesn't know when to let go. You think of removing it again, but your fingers hesitate at the buckles. There's a superstition among knights. Never sleep without your armor on the night before battle. Some say it's about readiness, but others whisper it's about respect. That taking it off is tempting fate, inviting the blade that finds the unguarded heart. You laugh softly under your breath. Superstition or not, the truth is simpler. You just don't want to deal with the cold. You glance toward your squire again. He's still asleep, the faint rise and fall of his chest visible in the dim firelight. His hand rests near your sword, fingers curled loosely around the hilt. Even in dreams, he's guarding something. You envy that kind of devotion. A fact floats into your tired mind, something you once overheard from a traveling scholar. He said that a full suit of plate armor weighed about 50 to 60 pounds. You smirk to yourself. That scholar clearly never tried sleeping in it. 50 pounds may not sound much to someone sitting in a warm library, but when it's pressing on your chest at 2 in the morning, it feels like the weight of every sin you've ever carried. The air inside the tent grows colder. You can see your breath cloud in front of you, drifting upward toward the tiny slit of moonlight above. Your body starts to tremble, not from fear, but from exhaustion. You haven't had proper rest in days. The armor feels heavier with every passing heartbeat, like it's absorbing your strength one breath at a time. You remember a story from your first campaign, a veteran knight who claimed he could sleep standing, sword in hand, armor on. You thought it was an exaggeration. Now you're not so sure. You're halfway there already, trapped between sleep and vigilance, your body too tired to move, but your mind too restless to rest. You close your eyes. The metal hums faintly in your ears, echoing your pulse. You can feel every contour, the joint at your elbow, the ridge of your helmet pressing into your temple, the tiny gap at your throat where the wind sneaks in. You think about how ridiculous this must look. A man wrapped in gold-trimmed steel, lying in straw like a beggar. But that's the paradox of knighthood, isn't it? You wear wealth but live in mud. You fight for honor but sleep among rats. You ride for kings who forget your name. And yet you endure, because the armor doesn't just protect your body, it hides your doubts. The fire outside pops softly. Sparks drift into the night. You can smell the faint sweetness of burning pine. For a moment, you imagine you're home again, lying near a hearth, your armor hanging by the wall, your mother scolding you for bringing mud onto her clean floor. You smile at the thought. You can almost hear her voice, sharp but kind. Then the wind shifts, and you're back in the tent, the illusion gone. You open your eyes to the faint glimmer of dawn still hiding below the horizon. The world outside is holding its breath. Somewhere a distant trumpet sounds, a single note, long and low. Not a call to arms yet, just a reminder that morning is coming. You exhale slowly. Your body feels like lead, but your mind is oddly calm. You've learned something through all these nights in armor. It's not about comfort. It's about endurance. You sleep not because it's restful, but because you must. You wake not because you're ready, but because the world demands it. You shift once more, feeling the cold seep through the cracks in your armor. You mutter a prayer under your breath, not for victory, not for glory, but for one more sunrise. The armor creaks in response, as if whispering back, and slowly, the weight of steel fades into the weight of dreams. The first thing you notice when you wake is the smell, straw, leather, and a faint hint of smoke drifting from the dying campfire outside. Your back protests immediately. Sleeping on uneven ground with a few tufts of hay under you is not exactly the chivalric luxury that poets promise. You roll slightly, and the straw crackles beneath your weight, prickly against your neck, where your armor has rubbed the skin raw. Your squire stirs beside you. Poor boy. His name doesn't matter right now. You barely remember it half the time. But you remember his face, always too eager, too polite, and somehow always covered in dirt. He's still clutching your sword, even in sleep, his fingers wrapped tight around the hilt, as though a dragon might sneak in and steal it. You nudge him gently with your boot. He startles awake, blinking at you through a curtain of tangled hair. "My lord," he mumbles, rubbing his eyes. You can't help a tired smile. "The fire," you say softly, voice hoarse from the cold air, before it dies completely. He scrambles to obey, almost tripping over his own feet as he rushes outside to gather wood. You shake your head. A good heart, that one. Clumsy but loyal, the kind that still believes knighthood is about bravery and justice, not boredom and bruises. You shift again, groaning as your back pops. Your straw bed was arranged carefully last night, but the weight of armor and restless sleep have crushed it flat. You sit up, pulling the cloak tighter around your shoulders. Outside, the sky is a dull gray, dawn still fighting its way through the mist. The air feels like it's been waiting all night just to freeze your bones. The squire returns, clutching a few damp sticks. He kneels quickly, strikes flint against steel, and soon a few sparks catch, licking at the edges of the wood. The tiny flames flicker weakly, casting long shadows across your tent. You both stare at it as if it's the most important thing in the world, because in this cold it might as well be. He looks up shyly. "Did you sleep, my lord?" You chuckle softly. "About as well as a man can wearing half a forge." He grins, showing crooked teeth. "I can take it off you, sir, if you wish. The others..." You shake your head. "Leave it. We might need to move quickly." He doesn't argue, but you can see the disapproval in his eyes. He's young enough to believe that comfort is a matter of choice. You envy him for that. You envy his clean skin, his unscarred hands, his simple hope that one day he'll wear armor like yours, not realizing that every dent in the steel comes with a story you'd rather forget. You reach for the small cup beside your bedroll, the remains of last night's ale. It's gone cold and flat, but it wets your throat enough to chase away the dryness. The squire hands you a piece of coarse bread, and you take a bite, chewing slowly. It tastes of dust and salt, but it's something. Outside, the camp begins to stir. Horses snort and stamp their hooves. Men cough, curse, stretch, and start the morning rituals of survival. You can hear a cook shouting orders, the clang of a pot lid, the faint laughter of soldiers too tired to remember why they're laughing. Life, fragile and messy, continues in spite of everything. You glance around your tent, your little kingdom of straw and steel. There's your helmet, dented and dull, propped against a wooden post. Your shield rests nearby, still smeared with dried mud, and near the entrance, your squire's handiwork, a bed of straw arranged like it's a royal mattress. You can tell he tried to make it perfect, soft in the middle, raised at the edges, with a thin wool blanket tucked over the top. You appreciate the effort, even if it's more symbolic than useful. You remember the first time you slept in straw. You were his age, trembling with excitement at your first campaign. The hay had felt rough, the air sharp with the scent of animals. But you didn't care. You were part of something bigger. A shining world of banners, vows, and songs. Now, decades later, the straw still smells the same, but the songs have long faded. A random historical fact drifts through your mind, one you heard from a monk who once traveled with your company. He said that even nobles slept on straw mattresses filled with herbs like lavender or rosemary, meant to mask the smell and ward off insects. You wonder what that monk would think if he saw your bedding now. Half-rotten hay, crawling with unseen things that probably don't care about lavender. You look back at your squire. He's blowing gently on the fire, face glowing orange in the light. There's something innocent about that sight. Like the world hasn't yet taught him that no amount of fire can melt the cold inside a knight's heart. You soften your tone. "You did well, boy. This is enough." He looks up, eyes wide with gratitude, and nods. "Thank you, my lord." You wave him off, pretending to be indifferent. Go see if the horses are fed. When he leaves, the silence returns. You sit there for a while, staring at the flickering fire. The warmth barely reaches you, but it's comforting to watch. You run your gloved hand through the straw one last time. Rough, imperfect, but familiar. You lie back down, just for a moment, closing your eyes again. The straw creaks beneath you. The fire pops. The world outside hums softly. The rhythm of soldiers waking, a dozen different lives beginning the same tired day. You smile faintly. For all its discomfort, there's something grounding about this life. You may not sleep well, or eat well, or even live well, but in the quiet between battles, in the soft crackle of straw beneath your armor, you find a strange peace. Scholars still argue whether knights truly slept in their armor, whether that image is more legend than fact. But lying here now, you think the truth doesn't really matter. Maybe it's not about steel or straw at all. Maybe it's about the idea that even in war, a man will always search for something soft to rest his head upon. You close your eyes again, just for a heartbeat, and listen to the gentle rustle of the camp, like the world itself breathing beside you. and for the first time that morning, the straw feels almost like a bed. You wake to the sound of nothing. No rooster crows, no footsteps outside, just the low groan of timber as your hut adjusts to another night's weight of frost. The world has turned into silence, thick, still, almost sacred. For a few seconds, you forget where you are. Then you feel the biting air slip beneath your blanket of wool and hay. The fire has died again. You sit up slowly, breath fogging in front of you. Your stomach twists, not from cold, but hunger. Yesterday's meal was thin gruel made from oats and a pinch of salt. The bread ran out 2 days ago, and your wife had to trade one of her embroidered scarves at the market for a handful of barley. The larder that once seemed half full in autumn is now just rows of empty wooden shelves and a few hanging strips of dried fish, curling at the edges like old parchment.
The first winter snow always feels like a celebration. The fifth, it feels like punishment. You step outside, and the sky greets you with a flat silver light. The ground is a sheet of ice, patched with old footprints that have frozen mid-step. In the distance, the church bell tolls. Once it meant faith. Now, it's a reminder of confession, of survival, of another day you have to somehow endure. You trudge toward the barn. The goat bleats weakly, her ribs visible even through her winter coat. You scoop up what little feed remains, a mix of straw and frozen husks, and pour it into her trough. She chews, slow and desperate. You understand that look. By the time you return to the house, your fingers are numb, and your lips sting from the cold. Your wife sits by the hearth trying to coax a spark from damp wood. Your son still sleeps, wrapped in a blanket that smells faintly of smoke and hay. You remember your father's winters, how the whole family slept close together, limbs tangled, breathing shared warmth. Now you understand why. Outside, the wind shifts. It carries the smell of pine and distant smoke. The manor's chimneys, no doubt. Somewhere beyond the hill, your lord dines on roasted meat and spiced wine. You can almost imagine the golden glow of his hall, laughter echoing against the stone, servants moving like shadows to refill goblets and trays. You close your eyes for a moment, not out of envy, but to keep the image alive. It helps to believe warmth still exists somewhere.
By midday, you set out to the woods. There's a rumor among the villagers that dead branches near the old monastery burn longer. You tie a rope around your waist and drag a small sled, praying the snow is kind. Every step sinks to your knees. The forest looms, silent, skeletal. Ravens watch from the trees, black eyes glinting like secrets. You find what you can. A few branches, a half-frozen log, a nest of dry twigs hidden beneath the snow. As you lift them, your hands burn from the cold, and for a moment you think of the monks who once lived nearby, men who never married, never tilled the soil, and yet spent their lives praying for others. Perhaps some of their prayers still linger here, drifting like smoke among the trees. When you return home, the sky is already bruising into evening. The fire catches this time, small, steady, miraculous. Your wife hums softly, and the sound fills the hut with something that feels like hope. You sit beside your son and share what little there is to eat, a bowl of thin soup, made from boiled roots and melted snow. You look at your child's face, cheeks pink from the heat of the fire, and for a moment, the hunger fades. You whisper a prayer, not to saints or lords or kings, but to the quiet rhythm of survival itself. Outside, the wind howls again. But tonight, it feels different, like a lullaby, like a promise that spring will remember you. The bell from the manor tolls again, long, deep, and slow. You pause, your axe frozen mid-swing. That sound always feels like it's calling from another world, a world built on fire and stone, not on mud and cold. You know what it means today. The feast. A day of celebration in the Lord's hall. They'll roast a whole boar, you've heard, with apples stuffed in its mouth and cloves pressed into its skin. Wine will flow like melted ruby, and every cup will spill a little more laughter onto the stone floors. For the peasants, it's a day like any other. except for one cruel difference: the smell. When the wind changes, it carries that scent across the valley, rich, meaty, almost divine. It seeps into your clothes, your skin, even your thoughts. You try not to think about it, but hunger has a way of finding its way into everything. You lean on your axe and stare at the horizon. From here, you can see the faint shimmer of torches flickering around the manor walls. The Lord's banner ripples above the gate, a crimson lion on gold cloth, proud and untouchable. You've never been inside that place, but you've imagined it 1,000 times. You imagine the warmth, the firelight dancing on carved beams, the shimmer of metal goblets, and the smell of fresh bread. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you let yourself dream. You imagine walking into that hall, your boots leaving muddy prints on their polished floor. You imagine sitting at the end of the long table, unnoticed, invisible. You'd take only a slice of bread, maybe a sip of ale, nothing more. You just want to feel what it's like to eat without fear of running out. To laugh without the sound catching in your throat. You glance down at your hands, cracked, raw, red with cold. The axe feels heavier now. The tree you're chopping doesn't care about feasts or hunger. It just stands there, silent and old, waiting to fall. By noon, you're back in your hut, where your wife has saved you a piece of flatbread. She's thin now, her cheekbones sharper than last winter. But when she smiles, the lines near her eyes soften the world around you. "The Lord's feast today," she says quietly. You nod. "Aye." You both know what that means, and what it doesn't. She kneels near the fire, stirring a pot of thin soup. "They say sometimes the leftover bones are thrown to the dogs," she whispers. You stare at the flames. "And sometimes," you answer, "the dogs don't get them either." That's the truth no one says aloud, that the poor live off the echoes of the rich, the scent of their food, the shadow of their laughter, the crumbs of their tables. When evening comes, the music from the manor drifts through the valley, lutes, flutes, and laughter woven together like threads of light. For a moment, even your son looks up from the corner, eyes wide. "Can we go see?" he asks. You want to say no, but something in you softens. "Just from afar," you tell him. So you walk together under the starlit sky. The snow crunches under your boots. The night air bites your face. From the hill, you can see the glow, golden windows spilling warmth into the cold black air. You stand there silent, your son clutching your hand. The music floats across the field, strange, beautiful, almost holy. For a few heartbeats, you let yourself believe you belong to that world. That maybe one day, your son won't have to chop wood until his fingers bleed. That maybe there's a place for him inside those walls, not as a servant, but as a man who's free. Then, a gust of wind cuts through your coat. The dream shatters like thin ice. You turn back toward the dark, toward the hut, toward the small fire waiting for you. Behind you, the music fades. Ahead, the silence swallows everything again. And as you walk, you hum, a soft tune, something your mother used to sing when the nights were too long. Your son joins in, his small voice rising with yours. You realize in that moment that maybe the richest people in the world are not the ones sitting near the fire in golden halls, but the ones still singing in the dark, with empty hands and full hearts. The night seems endless. You wake again to the sharp sting of frost seeping through your thin cloak. Your breath hisses into the tent, curling like smoke in the dim glow of embers. The fire from last night has long since gone cold, leaving only the memory of warmth. You pull your arms closer, metal plates biting against your ribs, cold even beneath layers of wool and fur. Outside, the wind winds through the gaps in the canvas, tugging at the edges and carrying the scent of ice and snow. It smells like the same winter that has haunted the valley for weeks, like a presence rather than an element. Every gust feels deliberate, as though the world itself is reminding you how fragile life is beneath the weight of frost and steel. You rise slowly, joints stiff, muscles complaining with every movement. Even the simple act of sliding your arms through the gauntlets feels monumental. You hear the faint clink of metal against metal as you adjust the breastplate, tightening straps to keep it from shifting. The weight presses down, grounding you. You hate it and depend on it at the same time. It's both armor and anchor, keeping you alive, keeping you awake, keeping you aware. The camp outside is quiet. Most of the men are still asleep, tucked into their straw beds like insects in cocoons. A few early risers move silently, hauling wood, checking horses, muttering prayers under their breath. You step outside, boots crunching against frozen mud, and notice the first glow of firelight flickering in the distance. It seems impossibly small against the vast darkness, but it is everything. The glow is life, and tonight, life feels rare. You kneel to stir the embers, coaxing warmth from dying coals. The scent of smoke and charred wood fills your nose, comforting in its familiarity, almost sacred. You stare at the tiny flames and think about home. You imagine a hearth in a warm stone house, the scent of baked bread, your mother's voice calling across the kitchen. But the image fades, replaced by the reality of this camp. Cold, dark, metal pressing against your chest, the faint sound of snow settling on tent flaps. A fact drifts through your mind, something a scholar once said about medieval winter camps. They often burned low, dying embers kept alive by nothing more than straw, dung, and the heat of human bodies. Firewood was precious. Wood meant life, and life was fragile. You smile faintly. Scholars love debates, don't they? They argue over methods of survival while men like you shiver in silence, hands red and cracked from cold. Your fingers ache as you lift a log, placing it carefully among the embers. Sparks leap into the air, fading almost immediately. You watch them dance, thinking about the dance of life itself. Fragile, fleeting, beautiful. You shift slightly, your armor groaning in protest. It is heavy now, unyielding, but it is familiar. You are used to the weight. Perhaps that is all comfort truly is. Familiarity. From the corner of your eye, you see movement. A horse snorts softly, stamping the ground. Your own steed, loyal and patient, waits near the edge of the firelight, coat shining black even in the weak illumination. You pat its neck gently. The animal leans into the touch, warm against your frozen hands. The rhythm of its breathing is steady, grounding. A small comfort in the cold. A reminder that not all life is fleeting. You stand and take a slow breath. Frost bites at your face, but the fire's warmth fights back in small patches. The wind carries a whisper of snowflakes, delicate and transient. You wonder, as you often do during nights like these, how many others are out there, awake, cold, alive, surviving. How many are watching embers flicker, waiting for dawn, dreaming of warmth that may never come. Your squire emerges, rubbing sleep from his eyes, shaking the frost from his cloak. He kneels beside the fire, helping you arrange wood. You don't speak. Words are unnecessary. The shared task is enough, a quiet ritual against the relentless cold. Every log placed, every spark coaxed to life is a small victory. You can hear his breathing, the soft crunch of frozen mud beneath boots, the whisper of armor as you adjust plates again. The fire grows slightly, its glow spilling over your tent and into the snow. You sit on a low wooden stool, back to the warmth, watching shadows stretch and twist across the canvas. The world is quiet, except for the fire's crackle, the wind's whistle, the horse's steady breathing. There is a rhythm here, a pattern to survival that feels almost sacred. You could close your eyes and pretend you are somewhere else, anywhere else, but the frost will find you eventually, and the weight of steel never lets you fully escape reality. A strange thought crosses your mind. The night might last forever, but perhaps it doesn't matter. You are alive. You are warm, however briefly. You are awake. And tomorrow, the frost may bite again. The armor may press like a cruel reminder. But for now, the firelight holds you. You lean closer, letting the glow wash over your face, imagining it as sunlight, imagining the warmth it promises. The squire shifts beside you, muttering a half-sleep prayer. You don't know to whom, if anyone, it is directed. You just know the words are meant to carry hope, even in the smallest way. You nod silently, letting him speak. The rhythm of his voice blends with the fire's hiss, the distant snort of the horse, and the endless whine of the wind outside. You close your eyes briefly, letting yourself imagine a world beyond frost and steel. Scholars still argue whether men of the medieval era truly endured such harsh winters without succumbing to illness or despair. But lying here, you know one thing. Survival is not just endurance. It's small acts of fire and patience. It's the quiet knowledge that you have withstood another night. You sit a while longer, the firelight flickering across your chest, the armor heavy, grounding you, and the frost nibbling at your fingers. The sky begins to lighten slightly, a soft gray bleeding through the horizon. Dawn is approaching. The world outside the tent waits, indifferent, but you are ready. In this fragile pause, you realize that life itself is a balance. Frost and firelight, steel and straw, exhaustion and hope. One cannot exist without the other. And for a fleeting moment, the night does not feel so cold, the armor not so heavy, and the world outside not so hostile. The village is quiet again, but not as quiet as last night. The snow has settled into a soft crust, and each step you take crunches loudly in the still air. You can feel the cold seeping through your boots, your gloves, even beneath the heavy layers of wool and steel. The night patrol begins, and for a moment, the world feels alive in a way that daylight never captures. Shadows stretch across frost-laden fields, and the moon, pale and distant, watches like a sentinel. You move silently through the paths you know too well. Each bend, each tree, each frozen ditch holds a memory. An old hunting trip, a skirmish with neighboring villages, a hidden stash of firewood discovered in better days. You adjust your gauntlets, feeling the metal shift against your wrists, the weight grounding you in reality. Armor is both protection and burden, a constant reminder that every movement is calculated, every breath is measured. From the corner of your eye, you notice the glow of distant candles flickering in the cottages. Families are awake, huddled together, whispering secrets meant only for each other. You remember whispers of your own from long ago, promises made beneath roofs that did not leak, hands held beneath blankets that smelled of warmth and hope. You sigh quietly. Those days feel like centuries past. A soft rustle catches your attention. A fellow guard emerges from the shadows, hood drawn tight, eyes scanning the horizon. You nod to each other, silent recognition passing between you. There is a camaraderie here, forged not in laughter, but in shared vigilance, in knowing that the night holds threats as well as solace. The patrol winds along the frozen riverbank, where the ice groans under the weight of the snow. You pause, listening. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls, its voice sharp and lonely, a reminder of the wilderness that surrounds you. You think about the old legends, stories of spirits inhabiting the woods, watching over travelers, punishing the foolish. Scholars still argue whether these tales were mere superstition or cautionary tools for survival. But tonight, you don't question them. Belief, even half-hearted, is a comfort against the biting cold. You round a bend and spot movement near the edge of the forest. A figure huddled against the trees, shivering, barely visible in the moonlight. Hunger, fear, desperation, all etched into the posture. You approach slowly, every step measured, the steel of your armor creaking softly. "Who goes there?" you whisper, voice steady. The figure startles, eyes wide, revealing the gaunt, hollow face of a villager who had wandered too far. You gesture for him to follow you back to the path, offering a hand that is as warm as you can manage. He grasps it quickly, relief flooding his expression. This is the reality of nights like these. You are both protector and witness, bearing the responsibility of survival, not only for yourself, but for those weaker, colder, hungrier. The patrol is more than a duty. It is a lifeline. By the time you return to the village, The first hints of dawn are brushing the sky with pale gray. Windows begin to glow as families awaken. Stoves ignite, and the smell of thin porridge drifts through the air. You watch from the shadows, observing the quiet routines of survival. Children shuffle to the fire. Women stir pots. Men check tools and livestock. Each act small, mundane, yet monumental in its perseverance. You allow yourself a brief moment of reflection. The night has been long, heavy with frost and fear, but it has passed. You have walked, watched, protected. You have witnessed both the fragility and resilience of life. These are the moments that go unnoticed in tales of battles and kings, yet they are the very essence of what it means to endure. A scholar once said that medieval patrols were less about defense and more about ritual, a performance of vigilance meant to instill order and confidence. You think about that as you remove your gauntlets and lean against the wooden gate, letting the frost bite briefly at your hands before they warm again. Ritual or necessity, it does not matter. What matters is that the village is still here, still breathing, still clinging to life. You head back to your quarters, each step crunching through the snow, mind alive with whispered secrets and half-formed dreams. The frost is merciless, but there is fire still, in the hearth, in the eyes of those you protect, in the pulse of your own heart beneath the steel plates. You pause one last time, looking out over the sleeping village. The patrol is over, yet the night has left its mark. Memories, warnings, small victories that will never be sung in songs or recorded in tomes. You step inside, letting the warmth of the fire slowly reclaim your frozen limbs. The night is over, but the lessons linger, etched into your body, your mind, your very breath. Morning light creeps slowly over the village rooftops, painting the snow in pale silver and muted gold. You rise with a groan, muscles aching from another restless night in armor and frost. Your breath forms little clouds that linger in the cold air as you step outside, boots crunching against icy paths. The village is stirring, slow and deliberate, each person wrapped in heavy wool, scarves pulled tight over faces red from the biting wind. The market opens today, though opens is generous. A few wagons creak under the weight of potatoes, turnips, and barley. Smoke curls from small ovens as vendors try to coax warmth into their dough. The scent is familiar and bitterly comforting. Bread, coal, smoke, and the faint tang of frozen meat. Your stomach growls, though you know it's a small thing compared to the struggles hidden beneath the fur and leather of the villagers around you. You navigate the narrow paths between stalls, nodding silently to familiar faces. There's old Marta, her fingers stiff as she counts out coins for a scrap of cheese, her breath misting in the air. You remember when her hands were warm and nimble, before frost and arthritis claimed them. You glance at her cart, stacked with roots and onions. "Marta," you murmur, "stay close to the fire today." She nods faintly, eyes wary, knowing that the cold can kill faster than hunger if one is careless. The market is more than a place for goods. It's a theater of survival. Every barter, every whispered exchange, is a story of desperation dressed in civility. You pause near a wagon where a young boy trades a handful of dried berries for a cracked wooden bowl. The mother beside him looks relieved, though you can see the worry etched into her face. Hunger drives these exchanges, but so does pride. No one wants to admit how little they have. You pass the blacksmith's forge, where the heat of the fire burns through the cold air in a small circle. Sparks leap, lighting up the ash-streaked walls. Hammers strike metal rhythmically, a song of labor and endurance. You pause, watching the smith's gloved hands shape iron into tools, weapons, and nails, lifelines for a village caught between frost and hunger. Scholars still argue whether blacksmiths were revered more for their skill or their ability to survive in harsh winters. But standing here, you see both. Artistry and sheer will entwined. A fact crosses your mind. Medieval peasants often had to pay taxes not just in coin, but in labor or crops. You feel a familiar pang. The harvest was meager, yet the Lord's demands never wavered. You glanced toward the manor in the distance, golden windows glowing, laughter spilling faintly across the fields. It seemed surreal that warmth and abundance exist in one place, while just a mile away, families barter scraps of food. A sudden gust of wind rattles the wagons, sending a shower of snow and straw across the path. You pull your cloak tighter, feeling the chill bite through your layers. The villagers respond instinctively, gathering their goods, securing tarps, muttering small prayers under their breath. You move to help Marta with her cart, steadying it with your gloved hands. She murmurs a soft, "Thank you," and you nod, words unnecessary in the shared struggle. You continue down the market, noting the subtle signs of scarcity. Empty baskets, pale faces, hands red from the cold. A young couple haggles over a half-frozen fish, their voices low, tense. You catch snippets of their conversation, understanding immediately the weight behind each word. Survival is negotiation. Hunger is diplomacy. Every small victory is a quiet rebellion against the cold and the scarcity that threatens to consume the village. You pause near a small stall where dried herbs hang in bundles. Lavender, sage, rosemary, scents faint but comforting. You remember your mother using these in the winter, filling hay mattresses with them to mask odors and ward off pests. You smile faintly at the memory, letting the scent remind you of warmer days, even as frost gnaws at your cheeks. The market continues to stir, life grinding forward in small, deliberate movements. Children with frozen noses tug at their mother's skirts. Elders huddle by the fires, nodding silently as if agreeing to some unspoken pact. Endure, survive, hope. You watch, absorbing each movement, each gesture, each quiet act of perseverance. The frost may dominate the landscape, but it does not dominate the human spirit here. By midday, the market thins slightly. Goods are sold, traded, or claimed by those with quick eyes and faster hands. You make your own small acquisition. A loaf of bread, not the finest, but enough. You bite into it, tasting dust and warmth, survival and hope all rolled into one dense slice. The squire watches, eyes wide, silently learning these lessons that no school or scholar can teach. The market is a battlefield in its own right, and here, cunning, patience, and endurance are armor as essential as steel plates. Scholars may debate the details of medieval commerce, the exact value of coin, or the efficiency of village economies. But for you, the lesson is immediate and visceral. Trade is survival. Hunger is education. Frost is teacher and adversary alike. You walk back through the quieting market, the snow crunching underfoot, the distant manor lights dimming under the winter sky. In the stillness, you feel both exhaustion and satisfaction. Small victories that matter more than glory, more than gold, more than fame. You glance at your son, tugging lightly at his sleeve. "Home," you murmur. He nods, carrying the bread with careful hands. Together, you make your way back through the snow, footprints marking your path, a reminder that even in hardship, life continues, stubborn, determined, unyielding. Twilight drifts over the village like a heavy blanket, softening edges and muting colors. You step lightly toward the chapel at the edge of the village, its stone walls cold and silent, yet somehow welcoming. The faint scent of wax, incense, and damp stone greets you. Candlelight flickers through narrow windows, casting long shadows that sway with the rhythm of the tiny flames. Each candle seems to tell a story, a whisper of devotion, a trace of hope, or a prayer for survival in a world that has little mercy. You enter quietly, boots crunching softly against the worn flagstones. The chapel is empty, save for the old priest kneeling near the altar. His robe is faded, hands wrinkled and trembling slightly as he adjusts the tapering candles. You don't speak, you don't need to. The quiet presence of faith, even half forgotten or frayed by frost and hunger, is enough. The squire trails behind you, eyes wide, absorbing the weight of reverence that fills the space. He's still young, still new to the subtle lessons that cannot be taught in battle drills or by firelight alone. He notices the carved angels on the wooden pews, The faint scratches in stone from decades of knees pressed in prayer. The small alcoves where villagers leave coins or scraps of food for the poor. You move toward a pew near the back. Kneeling, you let the cold stone ground you, the weight of armor pressing heavily against your chest. The squire kneels beside you, hesitating before mirroring your movements. Together, you sit in a quiet rhythm, the chapel alive in silence. The priest mutters softly in Latin, a murmur that flows over you like a river you've crossed countless times. You think of your past sins, your failures, the mistakes that haunt your dreams. Confession is not formal tonight. It's the act itself, the acknowledgement of fragility, the surrender to forces larger than yourself. You whisper prayers half-formed, words to no one and everyone, hoping that some of them take root in the frostbitten air. A historical thought drifts through your mind. In medieval villages, the chapel often served not only spiritual needs, but practical ones. People would gather for warmth, for news, for counsel. Scholars argue whether this dual role strengthened communities or merely highlighted dependence on clergy. You watch your squire fidget slightly, adjusting his gloves, and realize that it doesn't matter. Community, faith, hope. They blend in these moments, frost and firelight forgotten for a heartbeat. A small child enters, cheeks pink and frozen, carrying a tattered doll. She hesitates at the threshold, then steps inside, drawn to the warmth of candlelight. Her mother follows quietly. They kneel near the altar, hands clasped tightly, murmuring prayers so soft they are almost swallowed by the air. You notice a tiny smile tug at your lips. Small gestures like this are lifelines. The priest begins to chant softly, his voice low and melodic, filling the chapel with vibration that resonates against stone walls. It is both comforting and humbling. You remember nights spent under the stars, dreaming of battles, of honor, of glory, and you realize the simplest truths endure: shelter, warmth, and the quiet ritual of acknowledgement. Outside, the wind rattles shutters and shakes tree branches, a reminder that the world beyond the chapel is merciless. Inside, the candlelight dances on faces young and old, illuminating the perseverance etched in every line, every crease. Shadows play across armor and wooden beams alike, showing that even the heaviest burdens can be softened by the smallest comforts. The squire leans slightly against you, whispering a question about a prayer he doesn't fully understand. You answer softly, not with doctrine, but with experience. Faith is as much about the act as the words, boy, about showing up in cold and dark, in hope and fear. A strange, almost whimsical thought crosses your mind. Perhaps the candlelight here is like armor for the soul. Just as steel protects the body, these flames protect the fragile hearts beating in silence, giving them courage to face the frost, hunger, and weight of daily life. You rise eventually, the ritual of kneeling done, and the chapel seems transformed. The cold hasn't vanished, but its bite is softened by the warmth of shared presence. The squire follows closely as you step back into the snow, where the wind greets you like an old adversary. But tonight, it feels manageable, almost tolerable. The village lies quiet beneath a canopy of frost and dim light. Candle smoke trails upward from windows, mingling with the mist, and you realize that survival isn't just muscle and metal. It's patience, it's ritual, it's a quiet acknowledgement of the threads that hold people together. Scholars may debate doctrine and duty, but the truth is here, tangible in the warmth, the flickering light, the whispers, and the steady rhythm of hearts refusing to yield. You and the squire walk back slowly, letting the candle glow fade behind you. Each step crunches in the frozen snow, a reminder that life moves forward, even in silence. Your armor clinks faintly, a familiar grounding sound. For now, the frost feels less biting, the night less merciless. Candlelight lingers in memory, warming you from within. Night returns with its heavy cloak, draping the village in shadows and frost. You sit by the hearth, metal still pressing against your chest, boots removed but fingers stiff and aching from the day's labor. The squire lies nearby, curled in a blanket that smells faintly of hay and smoke. Outside, wind rattles the eaves, carrying with it the distant howl of wolves and the whisper of ice across frozen fields. Tonight, the cold feels deeper than ever, a living thing pressing against walls and skin alike. You think of spring. The word itself tastes foreign, like a promise almost forgotten. Yet it exists in memory, thawing streams, the smell of mud and budding leaves, the soft hum of bees returning to blossom-laden fields. Scholars debate whether medieval peasants truly anticipated spring with hope or simply endured winter with grim determination. But lying here you feel both. Hope and endurance intertwine in a fragile dance. Your thoughts drift to the village. Every home, every hut, a small bastion against the relentless winter. You remember faces, the old baker, whose hands shake as he kneads frozen dough, Marta, clutching her roots and onions, the blacksmith, hammering late into the night to mend broken tools. All of them, bound by the same frostbitten thread, struggling silently. Their resilience humbles you. Outside, snow falls gently, transforming the familiar landscape into something ethereal. Footprints vanish as quickly as they are made, erasing evidence of movement and survival alike. You rise slowly, glancing out the small window. Moonlight glints on the frozen river, turning it into a silver ribbon winding through the village. The reflection is blinding in its purity, a stark contrast to the smoke and soot of daily life. You let your breath fog the glass, tracing shapes that vanish as quickly as they appear. You move back to the fire, adjusting the logs so the flame dances higher, sending shadows across the wooden beams. The squire murmurs in his sleep, dreams mixing with reality, and you wonder what visions visit him. Is he dreaming of battles, of warmth, or of adventures beyond the snow-laden hills? You quietly hope for warmth, safety, and perhaps a touch of magic that only the innocence of childhood can summon. A fact surfaces in your mind. During medieval winters, villagers often relied on communal storytelling to survive the long nights. Tales of spirits, saints, and heroes filled the air, giving structure to the endless hours of darkness. Some stories were cautionary, some whimsical, and others carried lessons hidden beneath layers of allegory. You smile faintly, realizing that tonight the stories are your own, the silent rhythms of survival, endurance, and hope. Your hands, raw from frost and labor, hover over the fire, letting warmth seep slowly into aching muscles. You reflect on the weight of the armor you carried during the day, how each plate not only protected but reminded you of responsibility, vigilance, and survival. The squire stirs again, mumbling in dreams, and you realize that teaching him is not just about weapons or skills, but about patience, observation, and the quiet strength found in enduring the unseen battles of life. The wind rises, rattling the window frame, yet inside the hut, the glow of firelight creates a fragile sanctuary. The night stretches endlessly, but there is rhythm. The squire's breathing, the slow crackle of embers, the faint groan of wooden beams contracting in cold. Scholars argue about the psychological toll of long winters on medieval peasants, but here, the answer is simple. Connection, presence, and endurance shape the human spirit more than any debate ever could. You close your eyes briefly, letting imagination drift toward thawing fields, flowing rivers, and the first hint of green on distant hills. Dreams blend with memory. Childhood laughter, the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of a hearth shared with family. In these moments, the weight of armor, frost, and exhaustion fade, leaving only fragile hope wrapped in the cocoon of firelight and quiet. Sleep arrives slowly, hesitant, brushing your eyelids like gentle frost. Even in dreams, the night is alive with challenges: snow-laden forests, icy rivers, and distant howls. Yet there is balance. Firelight lingers in memory. The squire's warmth is near, and somewhere beyond the frost spring waits, patient and unyielding. You surrender to the fragile rhythm of night, body grounded by steel, mind afloat in dreams. The village rests, small fires flicker, and the wind continues its eternal song. Survival is neither grand nor glamorous, It is measured in warmth claimed from ice, in meals shared, in stories whispered and passed along through hushed tones and quiet determination. And as the embers fade, as the frost presses against walls and the wind hums outside, you realize that enduring is an art, a quiet poetry written in sweat, patience, and the heartbeat of winter itself. Dawn stretches its pale fingers across the horizon, brushing the village in soft gray light. The frost glistens on rooftops and bare branches, turning each twig and tile into something crystalline, fragile, almost magical. You step outside, boots crunching over snow hardened by overnight cold. The air is sharp, filling your lungs with icy clarity, yet strangely invigorating. You make your way toward the frozen stream that winds like a silver ribbon past the village, knowing that even in this harshness, life persists beneath the surface. The stream is mostly ice, yet here and there, thin ribbons of water sneak free, whispering over rocks and under snow-laden branches. You kneel at the edge, dipping gloved fingers into the icy flow. Scholars still debate whether medieval peasants understood seasonal hydrology, but you know instinctively that water is life, liquid, frozen, or dripping slowly from eaves. Every trickle, every crack in the ice carries the promise of survival, however fragile. Along the banks, tracks mark the hidden life of the forest. Rabbit prints, fox trails, the faint scrape of a deer's hoof. Even in deep winter, the woods teem quietly with creatures that move unseen, surviving the cold in ways humans can barely imagine. You feel a kinship with them, the same instinct, the same drive to endure, to find warmth and sustenance in a world that offers little. The squire shuffles behind you, eyes wide as he examines the frozen stream. "Do animals sleep in winter?" he asks quietly. You pause, considering the question. "Some do," you answer. "Some hide, some hibernate. Some, like us, keep moving, keep vigilant. Winter is a test for all life." A fact surfaces from memory. Villagers sometimes relied on ice-covered streams to fish during the winter months. Holes were hacked through the ice, traps set beneath the surface, patience measured in hours and cold fingers. Hunger is a teacher of subtlety, forcing attention to detail, observation, and endurance. You glance at your gloves, stiff and numb, imagining fish beneath the ice, their lives entwined with yours in the delicate balance of survival. You kneel and run a hand over a smooth patch of ice, feeling the chill creep up your arm. It reminds you of the night spent in armor, pressing against your chest, muscles aching. Life is repetition, endurance, and quiet ritual. Even the squire seems to sense it, crouching beside you to examine the ice, not touching but learning. Scholars argue whether peasants truly understood these subtle lessons or merely acted out of necessity, but observation alone conveys wisdom. A wind gusts through the trees, shaking loose a dusting of snow that falls silently onto the frozen stream. You watch as it lands, melts slightly, and joins the water's faint movement beneath the ice. It's a simple miracle: movement beneath stillness, warmth beneath cold, life beneath frost. You kneel longer, tracing patterns on the ice, imagining the water moving unseen, hiding secrets of survival that only patience reveals. Further along the bank, a hollow under an old oak harbors a small cluster of rabbits, their fur thick and matted from the snow. You smile faintly, watching them scurry beneath protective branches. Even the smallest creatures have strategies, lessons in perseverance embedded in instinct. Hunger drives them, cold motivates them, and instinct guides them. Lessons mirrored in human endurance. The squire tilts his head, asking how you know all this. You shrug lightly, gesturing toward the tracks, the ice, the subtle signs of hidden life. You watch, you listen, you move quietly. Winter teaches what words cannot. The squire nods slowly, absorbing, storing these lessons for the nights to come. Returning to the village, you pause once more at the stream, watching the sun begin to burn away the frost's thin veil. Shadows shrink, light stretches across snow-dusted fields. The village awakens, smoke curling from chimneys, and children's laughter peeking through cold walls. You feel a small warmth in your chest, fragile but present, knowing that even in the harshest cold, life persists, quiet, hidden, resilient. Scholars may debate the specifics of medieval survival, the efficiency of irrigation, or the impact of winter on agriculture. But here, by the frozen stream, the answer is clear. Observation, patience, and resilience are survival itself. Each step, each breath, each quiet act of endurance carries the weight of generations who have survived before you, leaving traces of wisdom in footprints, ice, and whispered memories.